Hello and welcome to the Certified Ethical Hacker Study Guide. In this video, we will discuss Chapter 6, Introduction to Enumeration. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Now let's ride our way into the first topic. After this short break. Enumeration takes port scanning to the next level. Now that you know how to discover live systems on a network, the next steps are finding what resources are shared on the systems, discovering logon accounts and passwords, and gaining access to network resources. Enumeration involves connecting to a remote system, not just identifying that a system is present on a network. Hackers aren't satisfied with knowing that computer systems are running on a network. Their goals are to find live systems and gain access to them. For security testers, enumeration is a more intrusive part of testing, and not having permission from the network's owner for this step could result in being charged with a criminal offense. Be sure you have a rules of engagement, ROE, and possibly a statement of work, SOW, in place to clearly define what actions you will be taking, and make sure to get written permission. During enumeration, you attempt to retrieve information and gain access to servers by using company employees' logon accounts. Knowledge of operating systems and how they store information can be helpful in these activities. Not knowing how Windows and Linux handle shares and file permissions can make accessing information and finding possible vulnerabilities more difficult. In this module, you learn some basics of various OSS and the tools for enumerating them. Some of these tools have been covered previously and some are new, but they make enumeration as easy as entering a single command or clicking a button. Now let's slam into the next topic, right after this short break. In previous modules, you have seen how to perform a zone transfer, use the dig command, and discover what computers are live on a network. You have also seen how to use port scanning tools, such as Nmap, to discover devices and services on a network. The next step in security testing is enumeration, the process of extracting the following information from a network: resources or shares on the network, network topology and architecture, usernames or groups assigned on the network, information about users and recent logon times. To determine what resources or shares are available on a network, security testers must use port scanning and footprinting first to determine what OS is used. If a network is running a Windows OS, for example, testers can use specific tools to view shares and possibly access resources. As mentioned, enumeration is more intrusive because you're not just identifying a resource, you're attempting to access it. Enumeration goes beyond passive scanning of a network to find open ports. For example, sometimes this process entails guessing passwords after determining a username. In the next activity, you use NBT scan. NBT stands for NetBIOS over TCP/IP, a tool for enumerating Windows OSs that's part of the Kali Linux suite of security tools. Now let's dive into the next activity right after this short break. In this activity, you work with a partner and use the NBT scan tool to find systems running NetBIOS. Discuss with your partner to decide who will boot into Windows and who will boot into Kali Linux. If you are working alone, use two computers, real or virtual. Open a terminal shell. Then type NBT scan H vertical bar less and press enter to view the help page. Using this information, enter the NBT scan command to scan a range of IP addresses on your network and see whether any computers are identified. Can you identify your partner's Windows computer in the output? Figure 6. 1 shows an example of output from the NBT scan command. Note the computers with NetBIOS names. The command also reveals the computer's MAC addresses. Shut down Kali Linux and boot into Windows. If you are working with a partner, your partner should boot into Kali Linux and perform steps 1 and 2. If necessary, shut down Linux and boot into Windows for the next activity. Now let's punch our way into the next topic, right after this short break. So, to understand how an attacker might gain access to resources or shares on a Windows network, in this section, you take a brief look at Windows operating systems as they relate to enumeration. By default, little information can be enumerated from Windows systems after Windows 7. Let's look at the Windows OS descriptions. Windows 95, the first Microsoft GUI product that doesn't rely on DOS. Windows 95 is the beginning of plug and play and the ActiveX standard used in all Windows versions today. A major enhancement is the registry, a database storing information about the system's hardware and software. Previously, this information was stored in files. Windows 95 runs on standalone and networked computers and uses the FAT16 file system. Version OSR2 adds support for FAT32. Windows 98 and ME Compared to their predecessors, these versions have an improved file system, FAT32, new hardware support, and better backup and recovery tools. The enumeration process for Windows ME is the same as for Windows 98, Windows NT 3.51 Server Workstation. These OSEs were created with security and enhancement of network functionality in mind. They emphasize domains instead of workgroups and use the client-server model instead of peer-to-peer networks. Each server is responsible for authenticating users and giving them access to network resources. The client-server model also allows for having many computers in a domain instead of the limited number of computers in a workgroup. NTFS replaces FAT16 and FAT32 because of the difficulty in incorporating security in the earlier file systems. NTFS includes file-level security features not possible in FAT. Now let's bang into the next group of Windows operating systems right after this short break. Windows NT 4.0 Server and Workstation. These upgrades to Windows NT 3.51 have improved GUIs and performance. Windows 2000 Server and Professional. In this upgrade to NT, Microsoft includes Active Directory or AD for object storage. AD is more scalable than other available solutions for managing large networks. It uses Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, LDAP, which is still in use today. Also, this update includes the first version of Microsoft Management Console, MMC, and Encrypted File System, EFS. Enumeration of these OSs includes enumerating Active Directory, Windows XP Professional. This OS includes Windows 2000 features, such as standards-based security, improved manageability, and the MMC. In addition, Windows XP has an improved user interface and better plug-and-play support. Security improvements in the kernel data structures make them read-only to prevent rogue applications from affecting the OS core, and Windows file protection is added to prevent overwriting core system files. With Service Pack 2, SP2, security is improved further with features such as Data Execution Prevention, DEP, and a firewall enabled by default. DEP fixes a security exposure caused by vulnerable running services that hackers often use for buffer overflow attacks, and the firewall makes it more difficult for hackers to exploit Windows service vulnerabilities and enumerate shares and services. In fact, enumeration of Windows XP SP2 and later systems can be difficult without modifying the configuration. Disabling the Windows firewall is common in corporate networks, but this practice gives hackers additional attack surface. In these environments, the enumeration processes used for earlier Windows versions still work much the same way in Windows XP Professional. Windows Server 2003. Windows Server 2003 includes improvements over Windows 2000 in some security areas, such as Internet Information Services, IIS, and comes in 4 editions. Generally, all editions include remote desktop, load balancing, VPN support, management services such as Windows Management Instrumentation, WMI, and Net Application Services. The higher-end editions offer better support for PKI, certificate services, and Active Directory, as well as enhancements to reliability, scalability, manageability, and security. Even with improvements in security and stability, enumeration techniques described for other Windows versions are effective with Windows Server 2003. Now let's fly into the next operating system descriptions right after this short break. Windows Vista. Vista comes in several editions and is the first Windows version to introduce User Account Control, or UAC, and built-in full drive encryption called BitLocker, which is available in Vista Enterprise and Ultimate editions. UAC allows running Vista in non-privileged mode to prevent unwanted code or user actions from damaging or controlling the computer, maliciously or inadvertently. Windows Server 2008. This OS features security options similar to Vista, including BitLocker drive encryption and UAC. Vista and Windows Server 2008 support Network Access Protection, NAP, which reduces the possibility of rogue systems being able to access network resources. Windows 7. Windows 7 builds on the security advances made in Vista with the introduction of a blocker, which allows for control over application execution. Including the Action Center in Windows 7, allows users to view potential configurations in one simple interface. Windows 8.1-. Windows 7 builds on the security advances made in Vista with the introduction of a blocker, which allows for control over application execution. Including the Action Center in Windows 7, allows users to view potential configurations in one simple interface. Other improvements include refinements to the UAC feature and Windows Defender, which protect the system from known spyware. Now let's roll into the next operating system descriptions, right after this short break. Windows Server 2012. With this edition, Microsoft introduces authentication silos to prevent pass-the-hash attacks, which was a major weakness in all earlier versions of Windows servers. Windows Server 2016. Windows Server 2016 features a number of security upgrades. The most important, Windows Containers, allows for application isolation to protect applications from one another. Windows Defender, malware protection, is now enabled by default. In this version, the option for Telnet Server is eliminated completely. Telnet Client is still available. Windows Server 2019. Windows Server 2019 was developed concurrently with Windows 10. It contains a number of new features and security measures, including container services, storage spaces direct, storage migration services, storage replication, shielded virtual machines, and improved Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, ATP. If you find this video useful, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. To see more videos like this, please click in the rectangle in the middle of your screen. To see other videos from this channel, please click the circle on the bottom right. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.